This is going to be the ultimate video showing how to get set up with your new Bambu Lab A1 or A1 Combo 3D printer. We're going to unbox, assemble, calibrate the printer so that by the end of this video, you're going to have your first 3D print in your hands. My name is Nick and welcome to Thinkable. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is just take everything out of the box. Alright, once you have everything out of the box, you're ready to start assembling. I have all the AMS parts over here. We're going to do that last. So the first thing you want to do is put the bed on the actual printer. Make sure to line up the bed with the little notches at the back, and it should just click into place. Okay, the next step is to take the bottom of the printer and make sure the actual screen is still facing sideways. We can flip it around later. Just keep it like that. Rotate it on the opposite side. Make sure it doesn't fall over. These 4 screws are what we're going to be taking out. This is what allows the bed to be unlocked. So in your tool parts box, so you got all these little tools in there. You're going to take the larger of the 2 hex keys, and this is what we're going to be using to unlock those screws. Okay, the next step is to actually take all of the packing off of the top of the printer. So all these zip ties, this cardboard, all the plastic. When you're taking the zip ties off, just make sure not to hit the actual power cord. So let's get all that taken off and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, now that we have it all free of packing material, then we can move this cable to the side and then take the bottom of the printer, put it at like a 45-degree angle and go straight under and line it up with that notch on the right side and left side. And just drop it straight down. Give it a little wiggle. All right, the next step is to attach the bed to the actual frame. So to do that, we're gonna move the bed all the way forward. And then around the back, this whole middle part is actually just a cover. So just in the middle, you just pull it up and then you can pull it just straight out and that'll reveal the belt as well as the linear rods down here. Later, when you have to do maintenance, these are the rods that you actually have to grease and clean. So all these holes marked in green are the ones that we're going to be doing in the next step. Okay, so in your parts bag, you're going to be looking for the little baggie that says for base housing. These are the screws that we're going to install into these green holes. Okay, there should be 10 holes here in the back. So just go ahead and put the screw in there with the big hex key. Go ahead and install all 10 of these screws and we can move on to the next step. Now that you have the 10 screws in the back installed, you want to keep that middle cover off and then just scoot the plate back slowly. And there's 2 more screw holes right here. We put in 2 more screws right here. Now that we have all of the screws done, you'll have 1 left over. You just keep this for spare. So next you want to pull the bed forward slowly all the way to the front again. Okay, and then this next step you want to be careful because on one of my other A1 printers I actually bent this plastic piece. So with this you just slide it back in, just slowly kind of jiggle it. There's some stuff in the way. Before you push it down to lock it, make sure that this little notch right here isn't on the outside because it bent and broke off of my other one. Just make sure it's lined up. Don't use too much force, just make sure it clicks down and you're all good. Okay, this next step is really kind of weird and it's what confused me when I built my first A1. So now we want to lay the A1 on its side, but you need to do it on the edge of a table. So go find like a sturdy table when you do this and make sure that you don't crush any of the cables. Like this one, make sure it's in the front, make sure this is out of the way and you're not crushing this bed cable. What we're gonna do, we're gonna lay it flat on the back side of the top frame right here. So I'm gonna show you how to do it and then you can do it. And be careful about the bed sliding down. Okay, just like that. So it'll be like almost flush with the bed at the edge of the table. Just make sure it's not going to fall off when you're actually like interacting with it, because the next step is actually going to be to install the cords underneath the printer. Okay, the next step is to install all of these cables underneath the printer over here. So First, you're going to want to take these two notches on this actual plastic part, and they go right in here in these two rectangular holes. And when you do that, you'll notice this USB-C plug actually plugs in. You just line that up and then just move it up, and you hear it click into place. Next, you want to take your large Allen key and screw in that screw that's right on the bottom there. Screw it all the way in. And then the next step is going to be to install these two cables. So this one is the white cable, goes for the camera right here. Just plug it in. Make sure to plug it in straight in, not at an angle, so you don't bend the actual pins. This one's the green one. This is the X motor. So right down here. Boom. So we got these two cables, and then the last one should be taped to the bottom of the printer down here. This is the yellow cable. So you want to take off this little tape right here, and now you're free to move this cable. You want to tuck it into this little crevice right here. And be sure not to break the wires. Just, if it doesn't go, just kind of wiggle it and make it go in there, just like that. Then it goes over underneath, and this little flap opens up, and you can put the cable through that, the way on that right side of that little flap right there. And then you can go ahead and close that, make sure it's not in the way. All right, and then once you have this little flap closed, you can go ahead and plug in that Z motor, the yellow one. Just plug it in all the way down there, and that is all three cables. Okay, so we're gonna be done with the bottom of the printer. So you can go ahead and now carefully get the printer off the edge of the table and just set it flat. And then now you can go ahead and fold out the touch screen, and then it's got a protective film on it. All right, and the last step on actually assembling the printer itself is the purge wiper. So this is a mistake that I made with my first printer, was not using the right screw. You want to use the screw that says for purge wiper. I used that spare one from like installing the bed. Don't use that, use this one. So all you gotta do is slide the actual purge wiper on to the little track. Make sure it's all the way to the front. Okay, so here's a good look. Here's the hole that we're actually gonna be putting the screw in. Kind of put it on there, and then I can put it up. And again, you're screwing into plastic, so just make sure to take your time and to not screw too tight. All right, so there, it's nice and snug. That is not coming off there anytime soon. All right, so this is the end of the actual printer assembly. There's one more thing I want to show for this printer, for both the A1 and the A1 combo, is the filament spool holder on the top. Actually, if you have the AMS Lite, you are going to need this for some kind of filaments that aren't compatible, like TPU. I know the glow-in-the-dark PLA from Bambu, you can't use with the AMS Lite, any like carbon fiber, anything like that. So all you got to do is take the actual clip. So I'm going to show you how to install this on the top. All right, so it's 3 pieces. So the main big piece, you just unclick that. You're going to put this side on the front, like the Bambu logo on the front. Put it at like an angle here, and I usually put it towards the left side just so the spool is right in the middle. I like that. So you just click it so it's flush with the bar. Come back there and click it on. Super easy. You have this little screw knob holder. This is where the actual filament roll sits. You just screw it on. All right, and last, you take the tube that came with it, put one end on there, and then one end onto whatever, it doesn't matter which hole it goes into, just like that. So if you are an A1 owner, you can go ahead and skip to the next section, but if you have the A1 combo, the next step is going to be actually install the AMS Lite. All right, now we're installing the AMS Lite. You're going to need this little baggie, says for AMS Lite. These are the screws that attaches the main body to the actual stand. Let's get those installed now. All right, so we have the stand and the AMS Lite just slides in just like that with the numbers facing the correct direction. That's how you know which way is which. Also, the cable is in the back, like the top part. So there's only 4 screws that you actually screw in, 2 on each side, and they are right here and right here on both sides. So let's go ahead and get those screwed in. flip it around, do the other side. These two right there and there. Alright, so the next step is to take these spool holders. You'll notice on the back of them it's either green or yellow. They go on the green or yellow. So you just slide them on. You might need to rotate them a little bit, and then you just click them into place. The yellow one just goes on there, rotate a little bit, clicks into place. So do that for all 4 of them. Alright, and now let's get it installed with the printer. Okay, so we have the AMS Lite and the printer all assembled. So now we need to connect both of them. Okay, so the first connection is just the regular wire going from the AMS Lite. Doesn't matter which one of these you choose, so just plug it in all the way. So that's how the AMS Lite gets power and signal and everything. That's just one cable. All right, and the other connection is through the tubing. So it came like this in my box. So it has like this gray kind of like sleeve and then this plastic circle like holder. There's 4 tubes here. You want to look for the 2 tubes that are the longest. These 2 you want to put in the farthest away from the tool head. So I'm going to plug both of these in there. 1, 2, because it's the farthest away from the tool head, so you use the farthest tubing. The other 2, go ahead and plug in as well. Like that. And the tubing is something that I've wrestled with, and I really haven't found a great solution to how the tubing hangs and everything. Just for now, let's go ahead and install these. It doesn't matter which holes they go in because they all just go in, but you just slide them in. That's pretty much it for the actual tubing. Another thing I would strongly recommend is to attach the actual power cord so it's not just dangling around. Just attach it up here in that extra hole so that it's hanging and it moves with the actual tubing. All right, so now comes the fun part. We can actually plug it in and start printing. So I can show you the power and we'll power it on. So right at the back here, this is where you plug in the power cord. The circle means off, the line means on. So once you have it plugged in and you're ready to start, go ahead and turn it on. And you'll hear the famous sound that you'll hear every time you turn it on, that little beep. That's something I love about this printer, something that my X1 Carbon did not have. It makes this printer a lot more playful and fun. All right, so now we have all the printers set up. Now it's on to the calibration and setup. All right, let's go ahead and hit start. Language, I'm in English. Region, North America. And the first thing is that it's gonna connect to Wi-Fi. This is so you can send files and it can download the firmware updates. You can choose to skip this, you can do everything offline. For me, I'm definitely gonna do select Wi-Fi. And then from here on, you just select your Wi-Fi network, password, and then we'll resume in the next step. All right, so now we want to log into the Bambu Handy app. So let's go ahead and get that on our phone. Okay, so in the Bambu Handy app, you just go to the Devices tab and then hit that plus icon, and then scan that QR code on the printer, and when it asks you, just hit bind, and then you're all set up. One quick note I wanted to add before we actually run the calibration sequence is the table and like where you're setting up the printer. Ideally, you want the sturdiest place possible, either on a really sturdy shelf or desk. My desk's pretty sturdy, but it's usually down in my workshop. Just before you run the calibration to do the prints, because this printer does really move pretty violently. But just to give you a heads up on that before you run this calibration. Now that we have the Wi-Fi and the actual Bambu Handy app set up, next is the calibration. Strongly recommend to do all 3 of these. So the motor noise cancellation is going to run through this calibration that makes the printer quieter. Vibration compensation, it's going to vibrate the printer in a bunch of different ways to make it print better. And the auto bed leveling actually levels the bed and makes sure everything's good. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to take about 20 plus minutes. So go ahead and start that and we'll resume when it's done. Okay, now the calibration is complete. Okay, so you might need a firmware update, so we're going to go ahead and do that. It's just basically the latest software. So let's do that and come back. All right, and once the firmware is done, this is the actual main screen of the A1 printer. So we have, this is where your print files are when you download them, or the preloaded ones. But first I'm going to show you some things that you're going to use probably every single time you're going to print, mainly the control little knob. So this, you can change the nozzle temperature by clicking it and then typing in what you need. The bed temperature, this is the speed. I usually don't mess with this unless I want it to be silent. The fan, which is the tool head fan, the little light doesn't really do anything, but then the extruder, if it's clogged or anything, this is how you change the extruder. The XYZ, this is how you actually move the printer manually. So most of the time the printer doesn't know where it is, like where the bed is or the tool head. So you'd need to come down here and push this green home button. It'll move to all the home locations on the printer. And usually it won't let you move the printer manually like X, Y, or Z unless you home it first. So you just push that green home button. Right here on the main screen, the filament, depending on if you have the AMS or the external spool. The external spool, you would choose whichever filament you actually have on the printer. Then you can load it. I'll show that in a second, but the AMS, once you load the spool onto the AMS Lite, it would already, if it's a Bambu spool, it will already have the info automatically on here. But if it's not a Bambu spool, like a cardboard, like a third-party spool, you'd click it and then hit edit, and you'd choose what the color and the brand and everything. Over here, these settings is like all your Wi-Fi and like name and all that info. And then the one you want to really look for is maintenance. If you ever need to run the calibration again, so you move the printer or you knock into it, you just click there and you can redo that calibration. The nozzle, whenever you change nozzles, say you want to go to like a 0.2, 0.6, 0.8 nozzle, once you actually install it, you have to tell the printer that you actually installed it. So you'd scroll down and choose whichever one you installed. And then you can come down here and change any of the other settings that you want. This last one, the assistant, this is where if something goes wrong, it gets clogged, print fails, or it needs to be maintained, this is where it would show up the actual messages that it gives you. I know you're really eager to get started printing, and that's what we're gonna do now. So I'm gonna use the little bit of filament that came with the printer. You probably have spools of filament that you can put onto the AMS and do a lot easier. For the people who don't have the AMS or a roll of filament yet, this little filament gets you started with your first print. So either use the spool or this one, and I'll show you how to load this filament. So I'm going to be installing this on the actual spool roller on top. So I'm just going to load it on there and then feed the filament through as far as I can all the way down into the tool head until I feel some resistance. Okay, so now is when you'd go on the printer. So you go down here to filament and you have to tell it that you want it to load the filament. So we're not using the AMS this time, we're using the external spool. So you have to tell it what kind of filament we're putting on there. So we hit edit. It is Bambu Lab filament, and it's going to be the type of filament. We scroll down, it is PLA basic. Color, we can put that on there, it's white for me. Don't worry about the dynamic pressure control. Hit OK. So now it says PLA, so it knows what temperature and everything to set to. So now you just hit load, and it's gonna go through and heat the nozzle, all these other little steps, and I'm gonna show you how to load it. Okay, so you should have heard a like beep sound. That sounds bad. That's usually the sound that is actually like the problem sound. So now is where we had to actually push the filament down and then hit retry. So let's go ahead, physically push the filament down at the same time you hit the retry button. You'll notice the little extruder icon start turning. So now you want to wait until it starts pushing the filament out a little bit. So let's go ahead and hit retry. Might have to do a couple times until the filament actually gets through. All right, so now it's good. So now we hit the done. So now we hit the done button. So now it's gonna purge a little more. So this little thing that's spinning, that's the actual extruder, like icon. So when it's pushing the filament out into the little purge wiper. It's gonna cool it off a little bit, and then it's gonna fling the filament just like that. So now the filament is loaded. So now you're ready to do your first 3D print. So since there's not a lot of filament in the included box, we're gonna go back and we're gonna print the Speedboat Race Benchy. So you go down to print files. You can scroll through and see all the different ones. You're not gonna have enough filament with the ones included. You need to buy some more filament. But for this, we're gonna do the Speedboat Benchy. The Benchy is usually everybody's first 3D print. It shows off how fast this printer really is. So once you click that, you come up to this page. We're not going to be using the AMS since we already loaded it on the top. We do want to do the bed leveling almost pretty much every time I do that. Flow dynamic calibration, we don't really need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. It allows the print to be a little better. So now we go ahead and hit print. So now once you tell the printer that you're ready to print, it does that really fun sound. It's going to heat up the bed, heat up the nozzle, go home. It's going to purge the old filament. This routine is going to be pretty much the same every print, so you'll get used to how it works. So let's go ahead and watch it print. Congratulations, you have your first 3D print right here. So they just finished, so the bed is still really hot, so be careful. So let's let it cool down for a couple minutes and then we can actually get it off the plate. All right, so let's go ahead and take it off the bed. So I usually just fold it up. I know here it click a little bit. You might have to just bend the plate and get it off. Here it is, your first 3D print in your hands, just like I said. All right, and just like that, we have our first 3D print in our hands, and we have our Bambu Lab A1 3D printer all set up. So I thank you for watching this video all the way through. I hope you were able to get your printer set up. If you have any questions, let me know down below. Be sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe to see more printer content as well as some of my cool projects that I'm doing. So thank you all for watching and I'll see you guys next time.